So, welcome to part 2 of handle foundations and cores and innards generally. A bit variable weather-wise in here. Well, not in here, out there. Right, where are we? Oh yes, okay, so I glued it all together. To recap, 14 inches of handle foundation in fiberglass, 100 gram per meter lead curtain weights, 70, 50, 35, 25 and 14 all glued to each other nicely, making one little lead whip. Right, a few little bits and bobs of notes while I remember. Fixed tube core diameter. Right. If you're using a parallel-sided tube, for example, like this, out of B&Q or other hardware shops, wherever you are, and you want to use a core like that, it's a little bit big, so I have to pack it out a bit with a small bit of kangaroo skin tapered off. Curtain weights here are, in this case, 4.7mm diameter, and that's a 6mm hole. And that's a 5mm hole. And a bit of glue packs it in. Also, it depends. If this stocking is squeezed out the way under tension, then it's thinner, and if it's pushed in under compression, as it is, it'll ruck up like that, and then the glue will get in there. Okay, anyway, right. So you've got a fixed external diameter, a fixed internal diameter, and a solid core, a spine core like that. Then matching the leather to the difference in diameter is quite tricky. Especially if the leather that you've got is too thick. If it's too thin, then you can wrap it round and skive it and fettle it one way or another. All well and good. If you have a leather core, so not a fixed diameter core, say it's rolled up suede split like I'd be using for the filler, or it might be a shaved down solid piece of leather, piece of belting, or sole leather, for example, whittled down, shaved down, then you can choose the core diameter, and therefore choose the step between the external diameter of the tube and the core diameter there, and so only have to skive this little section of leather for the filler, and you can match up the diameters nicely. If you're drilling into solid rod, then you're probably stuck with the diameter of your drill. My drills come in 0.5mm variations, so that's the limit of how much finessing I can do. Some people grind a shoulder into a rod. I've done this. If you have either a fiberglass parallel-sided rod or spring steel or whatever, instead of putting a chamfer into it, you can just grind a thinner piece as a little spindle in the middle there, and you can match how much you grind away to the leather that you're going to wrap around it, and then butt glue a core, maybe a sole leather core whittled down, which will also act as a bit of a spine as opposed to having too much suede split to try and compress. This is a tapered handle foundation. Now the first 6 inches is parallel for 9mm, and I've cut it off at 14mm, ground it back to half inch shoulder, giving me 7 3/4mm diameter here, which I've got to make up. I could have taken a different section of fiberglass to attempt to match it to the core, but all said and done, it's still a little bit tricky, because the leather that one uses for the filler might compress more when there are 2 layers of it wrapped around there than when there's 1 layer there, and trying to second guess that is tricky. Fixed wall tube, very core downwards, done that. Okay, done all that. Good, fold that one over. Drink of water, I'm a bit parched today, it's all that coffee I've been drinking. Okay, right, let's put you two to one side, notes to hand, and all this lot, oops-a-daisy, over onto my other workbench, the floor. Now, this is the slightly thicker of the two bits of suede I've got. Moreover, I'm going to cut a longer than usual piece, since the filler has to run the full length of what would ordinarily be a second belly. And is my leather long enough? That's the first question. Because I'm going to need 61 inches in total. And here's a nice piece which is 40. Oh, 62 and a half. However, I'm also going to need a piece of that to extend over the back end of the fiberglass to act as something to tie the whip up to, and to plait around before going onto the handle itself, to provide something to plait onto when plaiting the overlay from the point, so I can get more compression on the last section of handle. Now, okay, that looks on the face of it to be a couple of inches too short, but when I've cut it and greased it and footled about with it, it'll probably stretch about 3 inches. And then when I plait over it and roll the plaiting, it might shrink back an inch. I'm not entirely sure how much shrinkage there's going to be. Right. So I'm going to line that up so the handle is probably about there. That should be enough. About there? A bit more. I'm going to have to bend that up there a little bit. Alright, now, how thick is it at this point? Where did I last see my trusty calipers? Over here, along with everything else. Since leather, pardon me, is a variable thickness, even within the piece itself, 1.38 mils. So how much is this piece then? Ooh, 1.4. So, and how much is this piece? 1.38. Good. Why good? Because I'm going to need a little piece of exactly the same thickness to wind around here to see how much width I need to make up this diameter to this diameter. This goes down there anyway, doesn't it? Right. And I think I'm going to have to skive that edge. It's not very thick, this leather, and it's not enormously firm. If it was any softer I wouldn't bother skiving it. I wouldn't be able to really, but if I can I will. Just means there's less of a ridge in the finished whip where any leather overlaps. Opinel, in my case number 10, because it fits my hand well. Good carbon steel blade, really nice edge, easy to sharpen, very good on the bench. Okay. Right, yeah. When you're wrapped around the handle foundation, right up at the chamfer there, you are what's that say? 9.8. Is that what I expect? Probably. I expect a bit more actually. 9.7. 9.8, 9.9, 9.899. Okay, that's there. Right. One wrap around. Oh, I'll do that later. Right. Okay. How much do I need to equal 7.75? Let's try twice around. No, let's try there. Why not? That's more than I need. Actually, hang on a minute. No, I think it would be easier to add the two circumferences together. Right, so the outside is going to be that much. And that much is 29 millimeters. 29 millimeters, and it's just a smidgen under 10 mils when it's wrapped around. Measure it again, just in case, because as you see I'm running out of suede and I don't want to get this wrong. It's that old adage, measure twice, cut once. What do we have? Yeah, couple of points under 10. So, okay, I want enough leather wrapped around this here chunk of lead to equal smidge under 10 mil. Or possibly, wrong end, I want the feathered edge. It's probably easier just cutting a couple of links and doing this, rather than trying to do it on the whip. Goes around that many times. You've got a pinch here. It's a little over. Too much under. Porridge. About there. Okay. And there is a bit too much. Good. Which means that if I dig my thumbnail in about there. Sorry, I gave you a really good view of my kitchen arrangement there. Got to remember to point this camera in the right direction. Alright, so that is 48 to there. I think what I'll do is cut a little bit more off, because I can't stick it back on. Thin this a little bit for easier rolling. And skive the other end. Oh, how big are you? 50. I'll roll it up as tight as I can. Certainly as tight as it's going to be rolled when it's on the whip. Oh, that looks about right, doesn't it? What does that say? Smidgen under. Is it too much under? It's too much under. So I need another piece off here. Yeah, oh well. That's life. How long was that? It wasn't far short, was it? Let's go to this much. Bit of trial and error. Well, trial and success. Hooray for trial and success, eh? How's that? Let's think positively. Man, it's humid here. It's, what, tail end of July? And it's been chucking it down, howling gales and bright sunshine and hot on the Welsh border. That looks like too much. It is too much. Good. So it's somewhere between there and there. And is this enough? Yes, because it'll squeeze down. So let's try this bit as well. No. So more. About there. How big are you? Come on. Let's get this done. Right, 60's too much. Let's try 55. A little bit off. And sooner or later I'll arrive at the right size. And then I'll have to figure out whether to have one long thin triangle leather or maybe two. Because if there's too much to roll up, I'm not going to be able to get the compression. And I might have to put one piece on and bind it, and then put the other one on and get enough leather compression that way. That's going to squeeze down. I hope. That is going to squeeze down. So it looks like it's going to be this wide. This wide, wasn't it? Not this wide, this wide, this wide, or this wide. Let's put these away in the bin. It's getting a bit festooned with tiny bits of leather now. Oh, so, what is it going to look like, this amazing whip? Right, where are we up to? we're up to thinking that what I might do is cut a filler to go around here as much as required, and stick it in place here and then bind it, and then put a second one over the top down to the end. Yeah, notes my 10-foot bullwhip, that nice one, which is golden ratio from 15-inch fiberglass core, 8, 12 and 20 strands, plaited dynamo fall. That's got two fillers the same length, belly one. One is stuck on at the chamfer, and the other includes the handle length. Now the core was leather, and both the core and the filler cut into strips, and the whole lot encircled by the second filler and bound into place, and it could have been a bit firmer. Rolling leather around a spine, if there isn't too much of it and you can roll it nice and tightly and bind it in place, then great. But if there's too much, then you run the risk of air pockets and so on, so it's best to divide it into two pieces. I think I might do that. So what I want is that width minus that much, so 29 mils. Okay, so this minus 29 mils, how big is this? That big. Right, where's my pen? Let's have a red pen. Right, 29 mils of this is going to be the second filler. Right, so the first filler is 28. Okay. Alright. Filler 1. And that is going to be 61 inches minus 13.5 inches, because it'll be progressing up to the chamfer here, minus, and let's call it 3 inches or so for stretch, equals, oh, I can't be bothered doing mental arithmetic, mental enough as it is. Get the machine. 61 minus 13.5 minus 3 equals 44.5 inches. Okay, 44.5 inches. And it's going to taper from 28. I am going to double check this, triple multitudinal check this again. So yes, that sits there nicely. And once I've done this, and hang on a minute. Yeah, no, it's cool. Try in a middle section. Right, to there. Yeah, 7 3/4. Okay. So one of these sections is 29 and the other is 28. Right. So that's going to be multiplied by 2920 mils. That's the plan. I think I'll stop this video here and pick it up when I've tidied all this lot up and I've got the leather underway, because otherwise it's going to be a pain trying to upload it. Right, bye for now.